Hi, it's another Butt on Film. Today, possibly the most controversial Butt on Film yet. Uh, well, I mean, I started off my Butt on Film defending one of the most currently hated directors out there, Rob Zombie. And so I figure, why not defend another pretty hated director? No, I'm not talking about Woody Allen again. It's going to be my second favorite North American director, at least still alive and working today. M. Night Shyamalan. Whee! M. Night Shyamalan. So, we'll start at the beginning. I'm just going through, like, the ones that I own, again, as per usual, so I can sort of hold them up. I don't own all his films. As much as he is one of my favorite directors, there are a couple I'll get to later that, not for me. But, so, start at his first big success, The Sixth Sense. Not his first film, and there's some other dramas he did before this, I guess, like maybe some indie films or something. He did a couple of movies before The Sixth Sense, but The Sixth Sense was his big breakout. And, you know, I mean, this movie, everybody's probably seen it by now, or at least heard most of the gist of it. But I'll go back and rewatch this I rewatched it pretty recently, like, I don't know, maybe even a couple of years ago now, a few years ago now. But, like, it had been a long time since I'd seen it. I think I saw it in the theaters when it first came out. And that big twist ending, it was one of those things where, like, a lot of big twist endings that sort of pull the rug out from under the viewer at the climax or the third act, it kind of ticked me off a little bit when I was seeing it the first time. And then, you know, you go back and think about it and you're like, I guess he did sort of lead up to it. He totally did. He set it up quite a bit in that movie. So I don't know, I guess partially because this movie was so celebrated, and I sort of, like, I remembered enjoying it, but not thinking it was the greatest thing. It took me a long time to go back to this, but then, you know, I saw a cheapo used copy for $5 or something, and I picked it up, and I rewatched it a few years back, and it's a really well-made movie. It's really good. Toni Collette always gives a really good performance, and one of my favorite scenes in this is just the scene where little tiny Haley Joel Osment and Toni Collette are sitting in a car held up by a traffic accident, and he finally tells his mom, Toni Collette, what's been going on and what's wrong with him. And it's a really, like, well-acted scene, really great dialogue, very emotionally compelling and satisfying, which usually the climax of a lot of ghosty type horror movies tends to be when they find out whatever they tried to stop the ghosts didn't work, then they have to go, oh, well, I guess we got to do this other thing to make it happen. We thought we'd fix the ghost problem, but now it's gone away. In this one, it's more of like an emotional climax. It's not like a thriller. They got to run and rebury the body, like, right as the ghost is about to kill someone else. This one is very much about emotional climaxes for the main characters. So it's much more compelling in that sense. Because I think at this point, if you're a bit of a horror fan and watched a lot of, like, ghost spooky movies, you've probably seen your fair share of movies like that, like what I said before, where it's just like, oh, I guess we didn't do the thing that satisfied the vengeful ghost right, so we'll have to do it again, but this time harder. So it's it's a good movie. Point being, well-acted movie. A lot of people give M. Night Shyamalan credit as getting the best performance out of Bruce Willis he'd done for a while in this and Unbreakable. And it is one of the better Bruce Willis performances, but it's still a Bruce Willis performance, and he's probably the worst actor in this movie. So, you know, he doesn't really try that hard ever, and this is him trying a little bit harder. But his sort of half-assed, like, I don't really want to be here anymore acting style kind of works for this one, because he's supposed to be a bit of a morose fella, and the big reveal in the end, he's a fucking ghost the whole time. Sorry I spoiled this fucking 20-year-old movie, or however old it is, that everybody already knows the ending to. So, if you haven't heard the ending of Sixth Sense, I'm sorry. I don't know how you missed out on that one, but I guess it could happen. And then he did Unbreakable, which I don't own. So I'm not really going to talk about it that much. That one I kind of remember is, again, I saw it in the theater when it came out. Didn't really know what it was about. Like, the trailers just made it look like another spooky ghost movie. And then, you know, the reveal is it's sort of this, like, dark comic book superhero movie. I don't remember liking that one as much as his other ones. That's the one, like, everybody who kind of hates M. Night Shyamalan's like, well, Unbreakable's really good. And you know, it's got its moments, but I mean, it's been a while. So maybe if I watch it again, much like Sixth Sense, I'll see more in it. But it's been a long time. So, and I don't remember particularly being a big fan of that one at the time. Which brings me to, I think this might have been the turning point on M. Night Shyamalan's popularity, is Signs, which the reason why people shit on this movie is an incredibly stupid one. I'm sorry if you for years have been shitting on this movie because of the aliens water thing. This is a large part of my problem with modern films, is that because fans have so much input into films now, so many people think that making a film make logical sense or make sense in some sort of weird half science aspect makes it a good movie. That is not the key to making a good movie. That is so drastically far from the key to making a good movie. Accuracy to real life is not important in most movies. Like, in some, sure, depending on what kind of movie you're making. In a movie about an alien invasion, and especially when the movie isn't really about the alien invasion, it's more about the family and the father's, like, loss of faith. And, you know, faith, he was a religious preacher-y man or a pastor or some sort of religious guy, you know, and but also faith in just life, that sort of thing, like a reason to continue living, and like there is a good to life, a good side, after his wife dies, and his brother Joaquin Phoenix moves in. Some Culkin is his son, and a little girl also. There's, I don't know, like, part of the thing that I really like about M. Night Shyamalan is his characters are really compelling. They're funny. Like, the dialogue in an M. Night Shyamalan movie is genuinely pretty funny to me a lot of the time. They're, like, back and forth works. And it feels like kind of legitimate. Like, I literally just said, like, replicating real life is not a sign of a good movie. But it's not, with a movie, the thing I'm trying to get across is not trying to satisfy people from a logical standpoint to make a good movie, but more of an emotional standpoint is the important thing. Or just like a general vibe. I don't know. It's hard to really put into words what compels me when it comes to films. But the issue with the aliens having like a deathly, like water kills them, which is just like M. Night Shyamalan's little tip of the cap to the War of the Worlds, where the aliens are killed by bacteria, seeming like something seemingly so simple. That is not a deal breaker for me at all. I really don't mind that part of the movie. I find all the characters in this really good. Again, really well acted. Maybe I should, yeah, I'll start. Part of my sort of overall point with M. Night Shyamalan, and I think part of the reason why he's become so unpopular now is I would say he's one of the few directors left who is a humanist director. He clearly has a real affinity for people and what they do. It's like there are no real bad guys in an M. Night Shyamalan movie. Like, I mean, especially like you look at, he did that trilogy with Unbreakable now. And you could say Samuel L. Jackson, Glass, is the bad guy of that movie. No, he's misguided. He's got some really bad ideas. He hurt a lot of people, but he's not a bad person. Like, he's not some evil, mustache-twirling, just simply evil person. There's things that happened that led him to his life that he hurt a lot of people with. So I think nowadays the idea of being like a sort of optimistic and humanist director, it has become a little unpopular. Especially like every, superhero movie now is trying to do a grittier take on things, or, like people have sort of started to associate darker and grittier movies with being deeper. And I think that's a mistake, because a lot of the time that they are super shallow. And so I think given the chance, or I don't know how to phrase it properly, but you can be sort of an optimist, and you can be a bit more pro-person and still have layers to your movie. I personally think, with the exception of maybe people who have like some sort of psychopath thing going on in their brain, nobody is simply bad, and even like the psychopath thing, there's probably exceptions to that. But like, there's so many different circumstances to why people do the things in their lives. Good people often do bad things in a moment because of various issues, and that sort of thing. So I generally am pretty much an optimist when it comes to people. But I mean, we're in a time when it's pretty commonplace to just be like, oh, people suck, and I get it. Don't get me wrong, but I think that is an unfortunate way to look at things. I'm sure most people who sort of, post people suck on social media or whatever, or I hate people, mean it like they say I love pizza. Like, they don't genuinely love pizza or hate people. It's just hyperbole. They're talking shit and trying to get attention. So anyway, back to M. Night Shyamalan. So the next one, and this, again, I think this was a big turner away of people with M. Night Shyamalan, The Village. I love this one a lot. I think between Signs, I liked Sixth Sense, I liked Unbreakable, but I wasn't really rocked by either of them. And then Signs came out and I really liked it when I saw it in the theaters. And then The Village came out and I'm like, I really like this guy. I like what he's doing. So, I mean, it's sort of a running gag at Eyesore Cinema that my taste in movies is, if everybody says it's shit, I'll probably like it. It's a pretty good chance. I don't purposely set out to be the outlier and love the movies that people hate and hate the movies that people love, but it just keeps happening. It's fuck, I can't help it. It's not beneficial to me in any way. Like, I'm not trying it. But The Village is really good. I really like Bryce Dallas Howard in this. I think she did, like, when she first, I think this was like one of her first big acting roles or something. And I remember seeing it in theaters and being like, oh, she's like really good. I'll watch more things with her in this. You know, Joaquin Phoenix back again. Again, the humor style of it works for me. There's these like incredible shots. Like he has this really like deliberate pacing of his movies that for some people I imagine is too slow. And for other people, maybe not slow enough. I don't know. If you like Tarkovsky, it's probably like, this is like super fast-paced stuff. But if you like fucking just slashers where people get their heads chopped off every 5 minutes, then this is gonna bore the shit out of you. So he's kind of in this great middle ground for me. Anyway, I love his pacing. I love how he takes a minute and lets a shot breathe, you know, especially when it looks good, and it generally always does. I really like that he's basically doing feature-length versions of like old, like, I grew up watching Outer Limits and fucking Twilight Zone and fucking Ray Bradbury Theater and all those like weird little sci-fi like anthology shows, and his movies always feel like that, but a feature length, and I enjoy that about him. This one is a particularly of that nature. It's pretty cool. I really like the whole weird Amish village and how it's like the sort of like moral in the end of it, that no matter how hard you try to block out society, it's just like the problems with society will ultimately find you, and you have to be ready to deal with that. You can't close yourself off of it. I think that's good. I think it's a good movie, and I enjoy it a lot. Sorry if you didn't. Bummer. Then Lady in the Water came out. Again, saw it in theater. I've seen most of his movies in the theater. I kind of wish I'd seen all of them, except for, there's a couple. Like, I'll get to that. Lady in the Water. Again, I love this movie. People were fully on the M. Night Shyamalan shit train at this point. They hated this movie. I don't get why. It is kind of funny that he writes himself, like, he always does a cameo in his movies, or like a small part, but in this one, he makes himself the guy who writes the book that will eventually save the world and make it better. That's pretty funny. I don't think he did that out of some, like, crazy egotistical thing. I just think he was like, he's being cheeky and cute. I mean, there's a lot of, like, weird little, like, him indulging himself in, like, kind of cute little cheeky ways that film critic character in this, like how he like keeps shitting on that guy and how silly he is, and like eventually he gets horribly killed. He's like the only person who gets killed in the movie, I think. And I don't know, all the characters, again, really great. A bunch of like weird oddball characters, but they're all really charming. Again, like a really powerful emotional scene where I wanted to call him Giovanni Ribisi. Paul Giamatti. Paul Giamatti is talking about how his family died, and it just gets me every time. It's like, oh, that's a powerful scene. Really good. I love the whole fable style of it, which, sometimes fantasy just seems sort of, for lack of a better word, dorky to me. Some of it seems pretty badass. I watch Conan the Barbarian all the time, but some of it is fucking dorky as hell. So Lady in the Water surprised me with how well I enjoyed its sort of fantasy themes. which is throughout the movie. And again, it helps when you have really compelling characters and good dialogue. And then The Happening came along, and people fucking tripped over themselves to tear this movie a new asshole. It's possibly my favorite of his. I know, again, I'm the fucking opposite man who loves the things you hate. And I do not mean that ironically. I don't laugh at this movie because it's silly. I honestly think Mark Wahlberg and Zooey Deschanel do a really good acting job in this. I think Mark Wahlberg kind of nails that like dorky teacher who's trying to be like the cool teacher guy, while at the same time like his relationship with Zooey Deschanel, the first time I saw it, I'm like, man, they're super awkward together. Like, the chemistry is not great. But then it's like, oh yeah, that's part of the point. They're a married couple who's on the rocks, and they don't know if they're gonna fucking make it. So that makes total sense. A lot of the stuff that people laugh at and think is bad in this is actually M. Night Shyamalan purposely doing humor. The, like, hot dog speech in the, that's him doing jokes. Like, if you think that's, like, who writes silly dialogue like that, it's supposed to be silly. The whole, like, style of it. Like, this movie genuinely creeped me out the first time I saw it. It's like, that is pretty creepy. It really threw me back to, I mean, one of the obvious influences for M. Night Shyamalan is Alfred Hitchcock, and this has got The Birds written all over it. It's really got a heavy The Birds vibe to it, and I really like The Birds. It's one of my favorite Alfred Hitchcock movies. I grew up watching that movie. It scared the shit out of me as a kid. So this really like felt similar to me in a way that I enjoyed. And the like weird suicide stuff is really fun to watch. I really like all the kills in this movie. They're all pretty awesome. The dude who lies down in front of the lawnmower, the lions, the like the kid who gets blown away with the shotgun. It's all fun stuff. Why don't you enjoy it? It's so good. It's so good. You're so crazy for not liking that shit. Which brings me to the M. Night Shyamalan dark period for me. So I've never seen his Avatar: The Last Airbender adaptation. I watched the cartoon a couple times, actually. My roommate was really into it. He got all the DVDs back in the day, and so I've watched it maybe a couple times. This is my buddy Andrew, and not my current roommate. Back when Avatar: The Last Airbender was on, whatever. And I really like that show a lot, and I think it's something that shouldn't be adapted live. There's no reason to do it. I don't think there's any way you can improve it by making it like a live action movie. It can only be worse. So I didn't think that was a good idea in the first place. And as much as I love M. Night Shyamalan, I think if, you know, he's the wrong guy to do it. So, and then, you know, despite my saying everybody shits on that, like shits on his movies, but I still like them, like nobody liked that movie. There wasn't even like somebody who said like, it's okay. Everybody tore it a new asshole. So I'm like, that one I can pass on. And then he did that After Earth movie, After Earth or something like that, with Will Smith and his kid. It's more of like a starring vehicle for Will Smith's kid, like a vanity project. It's not the worst thing, but it seems it's a paycheck gig for M. Night Shyamalan, I think, is basically like Will Smith's like, I'll give you some money to shoot this vanity project for my son, and you know, why not take it? You gotta pay the bills, right? So he probably, after I think Avatar was a pretty tremendous flop, so he, you know, he did what he had to do, and it's not the worst thing. It's pretty solid, actually, as like a sort of young adult sci-fi movie, and I'm a fan of the young adult sci-fi movies, but that one's sort of like, I do find it kind of dull at times, and I don't know, I watched it once, and I'm not super planning to watch it again soon. So, Which brings me to sort of like M. Night Shyamalan's comeback, I guess you could say, with The Visit. I saw this in theaters. One of the most entertaining times I've had in a theater ever. Like, this movie is awesome. It's like, the kids are not like real kids in any sort of way. The teenage girl who's shooting the whole thing is like done as a found footage movie, and part of the thing is she's really like this, really wants to be a big filmmaker. So it still gives M. Night Shyamalan the chance to do his amazing shots and stuff, even though it's supposed to be like a teenage girl found footage movie. It looks better than any found footage movie probably ever. I don't think there's I mean, this beats the shit out of Blair Witch Project for cinematography. I mean, that's for damn sure. It's awesome. It's so fun. It's basically like, you could almost call it like an old exploitation movie. There's so many fun scenes where she puts the kid in the oven, or like the diaper in the face scene, and then the kid beats the guy to death by slamming his head in the fridge over and over again. This movie rules. Like, the under the porch scene, it's so creepy, and then she stands up and she's got her like skirt tucked in so her ass cheeks hanging out. It's legitimately really funny. Like, the way he sort of can twist, like can change on a dime the tone of a scene is super impressive. And if you don't get that from it, you're missing out, buddy. It was kind of interesting because watching this in the theater, you could hear like, you know, the audience being like, this is so stupid, you know, that sort of thing. But I'm like, what do you care? As long as you're being entertained. It's like, it's so fun. It's a ridiculously fun movie. And then Split, which, you know, again, sort of his comeback. People actually started to really like The Visit, and then people really like Split. And you kept seeing all these, like, articles and stuff, or people going, oh, M. Night Shyamalan's finally back. He still kept making the kind of movie he made all along. It's the same movie, like same kind of movie. It's just your guys changed. It's the hive mind, like, you know, like you just like as a whole, people were like critics started praising his movies again, or like, you know, you keep seeing stuff, and then people go, oh, it's okay, it's good. I enjoy this. I mean, obviously, you know, people make up their own minds, but it does seem a little hive-mindy how people will, you know, especially with M. Night Shyamalan, because like I said, it's like he's been like Split is the same kind of movie he's been making all this time, and people loved it, but they hated like Lady in the Water and The Happening. I don't get it. Yeah, it's awesome. It's also awesome. James McAvoy does a whole bunch of different characters. Just, he let James McAvoy go to town, man, and it paid off. Like, it's so fun. Just as a thriller, it's great. Again, great theater watching experience. The lady, like, it was a packed theater. Somebody had spilled a soda. Like, the usher came in and, like, tried to clean it up with a paper towel, but the floors were still super sticky. You know, like how a theater going experience should be. And like the lady next to me kept going like, just get out of the car when he was trying to abduct her. Like, that's fun to me. Yeah, I mean, it's a blast. Like, I think Anna Taylor-Joy is, yeah, that's probably her name. She had like a 1-2 punch of The Witch and Split. And then she sort of became like big name actress like immediately after. So kudos to her. That's way to do stuff. And then Glass came out, his third thing. I did sort of like when he did the, like, this is part of a cinematic universe now, kind of like a Marvel movie or whatever. I was sort of like, okay, we'll see, you know, how that goes. But I didn't need to worry. It's not fucking Marvel making the exact, I mean, I say he makes the same kind of movie, but Marvel, it's the same kind of movie over and over and over and over and over again. So I didn't have to worry about that. He had something very different in mind for Glass. I don't own it yet, so I can't hold it up. Sorry. But yeah, I really dig Glass. And I kept going, like, is M. Night Shyamalan going to solve the Bruce Willis problem yet again after getting two of his better late stage performances out of him in Sixth Sense and Unbreakable? Is like, but Bruce Willis has been such a pissy, I'm not gonna barely try actor guy for so long. Will M. Night Shyamalan get a decent performance out of him? And his, like, sort of trick to solving the Bruce Willis problem is, I thought it was great. I love what he did with Bruce Willis's character in that movie. I thought the whole thing was a really cool sort of twist on what, like, basically the Marvel movies have been doing for the last while, you know. It's sort of like, and he kept, like, teasing at you for, like, oh, maybe they're gonna have this big showdown at this tower that's happening, and then he's like, nah, I'm not gonna do that, because that's not me. I don't make that kind of movie. And again, ends on, like, this really optimistic, like, it sort of has this, like, he will end on a sad note, but there will be a hint of optimism. That sort of thing, oftentimes. And then, which brings us to the final one, his most recent, Old. His new movie, Old. This movie rocks also. Shock. I have good opinions about this movie. I think it's great. Again, this was the movie where, upon watching it the second time, I watched it like twice in a very short period of time because I love his movies and they're great. Upon watching it the second time, I think that's when I sort of went, oh, M. Night Shyamalan is a bit of a humanist director, and that's why, that might be a large part of why he is so unpopular with people now, beyond, like, his style of pacing and that sort of thing, which everything's so lightning paced now. It's just constant camera cuts and edits to the point where half the time you don't know what's going on in the movie anymore and it looks like shit. So he takes a little bit of a slower beat. Again, really nods to Alfred Hitchcock and that sort of thing. So he's sort of got a style to pacing that's, you know, hails back to the 50s and the 40s and the, you know, that sort of thing, which, you know, may not be too popular now. But people also seem to like to find things in M. Night Shyamalan's movies to pick apart. They really have this thing where they want to feel smarter than him. Ever since Signs, probably, where people are like, oh, that's stupid with the water. I'm smarter than M. Night Shyamalan. I'm gonna constantly make jokes about it. Or that shitty robot chicken show with that what a twist thing, where people, if I hear one more person say what a twist, it's so obnoxious. Like, he doesn't really do that many big finale twists anymore. Like, he did it in Sixth Sense, and, you know, he occasionally pulls it out once in a while, but he doesn't have to have a big twist in every movie. That's a mistake that a lot of people make about his movies. What they think is like a big third act twist is really just a plot progressing naturally as they do. I hate that fucking robot chicken show. It's so stupid. Sorry if you're a fan, but I'm not. Old, really good movie, and some really amazing scenes in this, like the giving birth to the baby scene with that big long take. That's so cool. And the one lady, as she's like, her weird calcium deficiency is making her bones fall apart. Like, love it. So good. Love this movie. I can't wait for his next one, which is only a couple years away, probably. And as per usual, he's not saying what it's about or whatever. You just gotta watch and find out. I actually was kind of pissed because the trailer for Old, the movie trailer for Old, seemed like it gave away pretty much everything. I'm like, oh, it's one of those trailers where now I feel like I don't have to watch the movie because I know every plot detail. But again, the best part of M. Night Shyamalan's movies are not the reveals of what the situation is or that sort of thing. The best part of his movies are the characters and how they interact with each other. And again, watching his amazing cinematography and shots and stuff. So that was part of the fun of it. And even though I sort of knew the basic premise going in, it still had a lot of fun moments. You know, it was still like, what's gonna happen next? Yeah, I really enjoy it. I know a lot of people didn't. Shock, you know? Something about that guy just pisses people off. I don't know what it is. Maybe, you know, I mean, I hate to poo-poo on the Marvel movies too much because I do every so often watch them and I'm like, oh, I'm getting pretty entertained by this, but then I'll watch the same, like, you know, another one and I'll be like, ah, fuck these movies. Like, they keep flipping me back and forth on, like, it really is, like, a lot of it's like a mood. And I do really think, like, we talk about a through line of quality, like, the worst Marvel movie is not drastically worse than the best one. Like, they all seem pretty much the same to me. I mean, obviously, to each their own. And like I said, I've been very entertained by them sometimes, depending on if I'm in the mood for that sort of thing. But, you know, if you don't like M. Night Shyamalan, maybe watch the newest Marvel movie or whatever you prefer to watch. So, M. Night Shyamalan, I guess give him another shot or don't. I like him, but you're not me. So, figure it out for yourself. Bye.